Was January 6th made up?
No.
No. Okay.
What does January 6th have to do
Well, I'm
with
just
politics?
saying, I think it's really interesting that as we see unrest in the street, as we literally see what just happened in the California riots due to illegal immigrants, we see people say that they want less illegal immigration inside of their nation, they want less diversity, they want less of these things overwhelmingly, and then overwhelmingly vote for a president who says that they're going to deliver on those things. It sure seems like an ideological divide to me on Main Street, not just from some elitist online or some rhetorician somewhere. It certainly seems to me like these are things that people take seriously and that they're having struggles with. Now, when you say this sort of nonsense like this, you say, hey, Andrew, look, we all have some shared needs. That's true. We all want to see our families protected. We all want food to eat. We all want safety. All of those things are true. But you realize the distinction between ideologies is how we get there. That's how we get to those things. The various ideas of safety. Let's take the trans movement, for instance, right? The entirety right now of the political polarization behind transgenderism is that women don't feel safe in their own sports, do they? They're tired of getting their shit pushed in. They're tired of getting their faces bashed in. They're tired of getting humiliated by men in wigs. They don't feel very fucking safe, do they? And so it becomes very ideological. It's funny, they want the same things you want. They want safety and this and that. But they seem to think that they're not very safe right now when it comes to this particular issue. And so other people, though, they do. And that's how you end up with ideological divides, right?
Are you framing that there's like a mass movement of trans women in women's sports right now? I can only think of a couple instances.
No, I'm pointing out to you something which is objectively true, which is the feeling of safety. When you say that there's shared values that people have across the board, I'm willing to concede that that's true because it's obvious. It doesn't even need empirical evidence, nor I think even a logical syllogism is necessary for this. It's observable by almost everybody on planet Earth. People have shared needs. Safety, one of the things that you cited, is one of those needs. But safety also comes at the expense of a feeling, doesn't it? I feel safe. It's not objective all the time, is it? You can be unsafe, for instance, and feel safe. But this is all branched around the feeling of safety. And women right now don't feel safe in sports, even if they're not dealing with any transgenders, and that creates ideological divides.
What can you point to that shows that women by and large don't feel safe in sports? Though this is not I'm not even here to debate the merits of trans athletes, but I think that that's a bit of a claim to say that women in college sport or any sports
Hmm.
are fearful of that actively.
Do you agree with me that there's tens of thousands of anti-trans activists in the United States?
I don't know, I've never looked at those figures.
Okay, well, there are. Tens of thousands
Okay.
of anti trans activists. I can point you to J.K. Rowling, for instance, who's a very prominent online figure, and her media has been seen by I don't know how many millions of people and made into movies and everything else. And she's a prominent, what is called, and I'll tell you what they're called. They're called
Sorry, can
TERFs,
I
trans
real quick
exclusionary radical feminists. And trans,
fantastic.
yeah, and
Can I
yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick,
Hmm.
so JK Rowling
Hmm.
feels unsafe in women's
She
sports?
feels that women's sports are unsafe, and many of the advocates
She's
who are
but
trying to
she's not a
push people
participant
out, yes.
but she's not a participant in women's sports.
Do you need to be a participant in women's sports in order to point out that women's sports is not safe for women?
Yeah, I would argue that if all of the female athletes in female sports, or the majority even, came out and said, "I do not feel safe within female sports right now," then I would say, "Okay, absolutely, that's a problem that we need to
Well,
look at."
I
By and
agree.
large,
I guess that's
what's
why so many
happening.
universities recently changed their policies so that trans athletes can't compete anymore against women if they're males. I guess they must have gotten some feedback from their faculty, which they did, and from their students, which they did, that they no longer wanted to have them participate. And you know what the number one reason that they cited was? They didn't feel safe.
So it's not even happening anymore. There's been laws
It's
passed to
still
prevent that?
happening. Yes, of course it's happening.
Oh, you just said that colleges have outlawed
I said many
that
colleges
from
have,
happening.
yeah, many colleges
Okay.
have reversed policies that they had on this, specifically because of the feelings of safety from the athletes who were involved in these various programs.
Okay, so now their athletes are no longer feeling unsafe?
And they're not feeling unsafe because ideology was able to reverse policy? Yeah?
Oh, I'm going back to what you were saying, where you're saying the number
Uh-huh.
one thing in transgen and the number one issue with transgender issues in
No.
the
No,
US.
don't straw man my position. I didn't say that's the number one issue with
I'm not trying
transgenders
to.
in the US. What I told
Okay.
you, I was speaking to ideological distinctions and how the feeling of safety is paramount when it comes to the idea of trans sports. Not that that's the number one issue with transgender anything, only that I can easily use that as an example for how ideology transfers over to the mainstream and affects policy.
I have no background or information on transgender people participating in sports. I don't play
I
sports,
don't
as
think
you
you have a
mentioned,
lot of
I'm
background
a badass.
information on anything, honestly.
But
Because
fair
you
enough,
think
you can
that
say that.
people don't have ideological divides on Main Street because you see them
No, I'm
buying their
saying that
fucking salads and their chicken sandwiches and not talking about how they hate the trans out in public, right? But the thing is so funny about it is like
you think I'm a food reviewer?
no, no, no. The point that
Okay.
I'm making to you is that
I'm
whatever
not asking
whatever
people
your
about what they're eating.
whatever your anecdotal evidences are of people who are out in the mainstream due to the normalcy bias acting as though everything is perfectly acceptable is the same thing that you would find in war-torn France, war-torn Germany, war-torn Russia. People are always moving towards the idea of normalcy, even if there are major ideological divides. And by the way, you still haven't demonstrated in any way, shape, or form how I'm an actual grifter other than you put university in the name of a course that you sold and marketed as a way to up your debate skills. And you haven't watched it, so you can't even criticize it, nor do you know what the guest list was that came on, who are PhD, by the way, PhDs. One, a PhD in religions. And the whole point was to show you how it is that you can make ideological arguments from a religious worldview and not look like a fucking stupid fool. And guess what? I had experts come in who did exactly that. Many prominent experts, in fact, and many more to come. So I'm not really sure how it is that I'm grifting.
And
Again, and
on that note, I did want to interrupt and just let you know you are at about the half-hour mark for that. So it's up to you if you want to continue there or if you wanted to start moving into your other points. It's up to the two of you.
I'm fine either
Or
way.
do you want to wrap
Do you
this
feel
up
like
maybe
you
in the next?
successfully demonstrated that I was a grifter, or did you have anything more you wanted to say on that point?
As I'm trying to say to you, Andrew, is that I believe that you are a grifter because you are pushing forth this narrative that is simply untrue. And while you say that, "Oh, I'm talking to people about chicken sandwiches or whatever the fuck," that's not what I'm talking about to the people on the street. I am talking to them about their ideologies, about these specific difficult issues. And by and large, most people are actually pretty in line with one another. It's very, very fractional margins about these like niche issues like trans people in sports, which at the end of the day does not overwhelmingly affect the population. Sure, there's disagreements about that, but it's also not war. It's not a battle. Nobody's losing their life over it. Nobody's actively in danger in these whether it's trans sports or gay marriage or whatever the fuck. Nobody's actually in danger from any of that. So it's crazy to frame it as combat and as battle. That is intentionally trying to trigger the fight or flight response in your audience.
Oh,
And that
I'm not intentionally trying to trigger a fight or flight response. I am intentionally explaining exactly what I think, which is that it is an ideological battle, that millions of people have lost their lives in the womb, smited by their own mothers due to the propaganda of the state and feminism, and that is something which has happened, and from my view, is mass murder. I have pointed out multiple times that there's a massive illegal immigration crisis which is going on, which has cost thousands upon thousands of people their lives in crime, even more in fentanyl and overdosing, even more in the drug trade which is going on there, which is going on due to the illegal immigration which is happening in the nation. I can go on and on and on and on and on, but when you make these crazy ass claims, nobody's losing their lives, you're quite wrong. They are losing their lives. They get killed
and
often. Hang on, they get killed often enough that Chicago is a battleground, a literal war zone going on in Chicago. More people were losing their lives there a day than were losing their lives in Afghanistan during the war. Were you aware of that? Yes, not kidding. Look up the stats yourself. Look it up yourself. It is the case that there are literal fucking war zones and battlegrounds right now in the United States. You just don't know anything about it because you've never looked into it. But some of us have. And the thing is that it's nice that you go into these hunky-dory neighborhoods and ask people who are out doing their daily stuff, maybe, what their ideology is. But remember, there's also something called phraseology. And the idea is here you can actually phrase questions in a way which affirms bias. So I don't, like, you're so ignorant on these issues, it's difficult for me to even trust what you're saying to me right now. It's actually difficult for me to. Why would you raise a skeptical eyebrow when I mentioned Chicago? Why? You don't know how bad things are there? What about Detroit? Do you know how bad things are there? It's fucking bad. I don't know what to tell you. It's real bad. It's not good.
Well, I will say this as somebody who has been to literal active war zones and somebody who has been to Chicago and to Detroit.
What active war zones have you been in?
I've been to Syria and I've been to Yemen.
What active war zones were you in?
Syria, which is...
No. That's a country.
No,
I'm asking
Syria.
about an active war zone, not if there's a war going on in the country, but you were happened to be in the country when there was a war. What war zone were you in? Did you see the battle of with your own eyes because you were there and you were watching people blow each other to bits, or did you happen to go to the country while a war was going on and you were in the safety zones? Which one's actually true?
I have seen a bomb go off and I have seen people die in front of me.
Where? Where did that happen?
In Syria, in Yemen.
So in Syria, you were a war correspondent and you watched people get blown up?
I wasn't a war correspondent, but I have been in dangerous places.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been to Syria, I've been to Yemen, I have been to Israel as well. So I've seen the front lines of what war is, and it is horrific, and that is dangerous. And it's I don't.
That's
even
really
need
funny that you went to Israel. And you don't realize that entire war that's going on there is ideological. Very little of it is actually physical. It's almost all ideological.